This is the third largest free-hanging stalactite in the world. Free-hanging means it's coming out of the middle of a cave roof. We've got a very unusual cave here, a completely natural flat roof with a crack in the middle, an ancient crack in the middle, and a lot of water coming through that place. There's water coming through everywhere and producing calcite, but here you've got a good flow coming through for a very long time. So the result is a lot of calcite. This one is 7.3 meters long, the third largest of its kind in the world. Just for the record, there's a bigger one underneath central Brazil, which is quite a bit longer than this, but thinner. And there's also one of all places, not too far from Beirut, under the Lebanon, which is the last place you'd expect. But they go everywhere. This one, I'm delighted to be able to tell our American friends, we've got a bigger one than they have. You try telling that to people from Texas. It is what it is. At the moment, it's 7.3 meters long, and wherever you see water running down it or dripping off the end of it, it's still growing very slowly, so it's still producing calcite. It's also very heavy. Now obviously we can't take it down and weigh it, so we have to estimate. And we know that calcite, when it's compact or solid, weighs 2.6 tons for every cubic meter. You can do the maths. That's probably heading up somewhere above 6 tons. The obvious question, how does it stay up there? If you think of a tree upside down, it's got roots going up through that crack and spreading out. So no one's ever been up there. You obviously couldn't get a ladder down those passages, but we have done radar from underneath, from the surface as well, and it shows up as a lot more calcite immediately above that layer of stone, anchoring it, if you like. And as you notice, there's a stalactite in front. That, at the moment, isn't growing. You can't see any water running down it or dripping off the end of it. It appears to be attached above, so it's all part of something bigger, but this one may be older. We have no way of proving that. But the one behind it, we have some kind of idea. It's still growing, there's still water running down it, even through the middle of it, and particularly dripping off the end of it. So it's still producing calcite. And we get a rough idea of how old it is from the speed it grows. They took the first photographs in 1952. It was about half an inch shorter. Okay, we've gone metric since then. So you could say, roughly, it's growing at about a centimetre every 50 years. Less than the depth of your fingernail every year, particularly at the bottom. And the amazing thing is, I'm sure you know what the weather's been like this winter. It's only recently dried out to any bit. It's dripping now at the same speed it would have been dripping at the end of the summer. So it's a constant flow of water. Somebody once said to me, it's a bit like a coffee filter that gets topped up with a kettle of water every few hours and then drips steadily at the bottom. That's a pretty good analogy for it. Doesn't taste of coffee. But basically, the water you see now would have fallen on the surface about a year ago as rain. And it's taken that long to filter through a very complex system of drainage. So it's not in a hurry.
So when those two guys come in here, it would have been pitch black. How did they see what was in here?
They had weak. I'm going to come to this.
Sorry.
You're grand. You're grand. I'm delighted you're thinking. But they would have had weak head torches. Okay. So when they first saw this thing, it must have been like some kind of hallucination. They were absolutely gobsmacked. That's the correct Irish term, speechless. So what they actually did was they tiptoed around the floor of the cave, or stumbled more likely, whispering in case it fell down. Of course, they were wrong about that. But then they had a bit of a problem. They had to get out of here again. And on the way back, I don't know how long they had, the torches they had were primitive miner's lamps on a cable leading onto a carbide battery, so not very reliable. I hope they had spare torch batteries. Common sense, you would think they would have spare torch batteries, but I don't know.
Back then, would they then? Would they? You know, back then? No.
I don't know.
No.
They were gone rogue, so we really don't know how much they were planning, how much they planned any of this. But they did get out, and of course by the time they got back out to the surface, they'd been abandoned by the other guys who'd gone to the beach. So the gentlemen had gone to the beach. Mike and Brian had to walk back to Lisdoonvarna. They were actually going to keep it a secret at first. I think they wanted to come in the next day on their own, but eventually they did get back to civilization. It's a good job they were young and fit. Probably tired, covered in mud, and still very excited. So I can just imagine the reaction. At that stage they were going to try and make a joke out of the whole adventure, but I can just imagine the reaction. What have you been drinking? You're talking nonsense. Anyway, they were eventually believed, and the rest of the group came in the following day with better lights, good, powerful lights and cameras, and of course it then became famous, and they explored the cave quite a bit more. But we're going to explore it a bit more ourselves. We're going to go down in a minute. But just going back to the time scale,